Hi, by the way. Thank you. It's my springtime.
Yeah.
Oh, the screen is coming to life. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Is Sarah?
She's on audit, you can hear her.
Okay, great.
I am here.
Excellent. It sounds like you're
Yeah,
under the
some
weather
form.
a bit.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay, well, we'll convene the meeting of the Maine Commission on Governmental Ethics and Election Practices. This is a special meeting. It's May 8th. We're here to hear an appeal from Mr. Scott Girardin of a decision by the commission. And Mr. Girardin, if you want to come up and sit at the witness table, that'd be great. Am I pronouncing your name correctly? Good job, terrific. And I have a script that I should go through because this is a formal hearing. We're going to swear witnesses. We're going to hear testimony and make a decision. So, good morning. Today is Wednesday, May 8th, 2024. This hearing is on an appeal from a determination by the Commission's Executive Director denying Scott Girardin's request for certification as a Maine Clean Election candidate. My name is William Schneider, and as the Chair of the Commission on Governmental Ethics and Election Practices, I will be presiding over this hearing. The hearing is being conducted in accordance with the Administrative Procedures Act, which is 5 MRS sections 9051 to 9063, the Maine Clean Election Act, 21A MRS section 1125 paragraph 14, and the Ethics Commission Rules Chapter 2. The appeal was filed on May 3rd, 2024 in accordance with 21A MRS section 1125 paragraph 14A. Notice of today's hearing was provided to the appellant and his opponent in accordance with 21A MRS section 1125 paragraph 14B, and this appeal is being held within 5 business days after the appeal was properly filed. Pursuant to 21A MRS section 1125 14B, quote, the appellant has the burden of proving that the certification decision was in error as a matter of law or was based on factual error. So that's your burden to prove. Evidence will be admitted if it is the kind of evidence upon which reasonable persons are accustomed to rely in the conduct of serious affairs. I may exclude evidence that is irrelevant or unduly repetitious. As presiding officer, I will rule on any objections. My rulings are subject to change or amendment by the commission on motion of any commission member. Assistant Attorney Jonathan Bolton is present. He's here today as counsel to the commission. He's right there. He's not acting as an advocate in this proceeding and did not participate in the decision on appeal. The notice of hearing in this matter requested that anyone wishing to intervene as a party in this matter submit a letter to the commission as soon as possible. My understanding is that the commission has not received any written request to intervene. Is that correct, Mr. Wynn?
That's right.
Okay, great. Is there anyone here who seeks permission to intervene as a party in this matter? I don't see anyone. Director Wayne has submitted a proposed administrative record, base number Girardin record 1 to 23. Does any party object to admission into the record of Girardin record 1 to 23? And do you object to that, Mr.
No.
Mayor? Okay, great. Girardin record 1 to 23 is hereby admitted into the record. I will now describe the hearing process. The hearing will proceed as follows, and you should listen to this. I will ask the Commission's Executive Director to describe what is in the record of the staff's determination. The appellant will have an opportunity to make a brief opening statement and to present any evidence in support of the appeal, including testimony of any witnesses he wishes to call. All witnesses must be sworn. Any written evidence that appellant wishes to offer should be marked as an exhibit to make the record clear. So if you have any paperwork that you want to offer, we'll mark it as an exhibit and number it so that the record will show that later on. After each witness testifies, commission members may ask questions of that witness, as may commission counsel. After commission members and counsel have asked any questions, the executive director and the interveners may question the witness if they wish. Following the presentation of testimony and written evidence, the appellant will have an opportunity to make a brief closing statement. Any person granted intervener status of the party will have an opportunity to make a brief closing statement. The executive director will have an opportunity to make a brief closing statement in response. At its discretion, the commission may invite any interested persons in attendance to make statements regarding the appeal if they wish. The appellant will have an opportunity for a brief rebuttal. The hearing record will then be closed and the commission will deliberate. The commission will rule on the appeal following deliberations and within 5 business days after completion of the hearing. Do you understand all that? Does everybody understand all that? Mr. Bolton, Mr. Wayne?
Yes.
Yes.
Can I ask you a question?
You may.
The staff, if it's okay, wanted to bring one witness.
Yes.
Which was Ms. Lori Brand.
Yep.
To explain our procedures.
Yep.
And I received a late breaking suggestion from her that we might want to add to the record by including the guidebook, at least the actual guidebook.
Yep.
So at the appropriate time, if the commission is okay with it, we'd like to propose this be part of the record.
Sure. Do you want to mark it as an exhibit?
Yes. Yeah. I don't have any way to mark it right now.
Okay.
I guess I could do it with ink, but.
Yeah, do it with ink. That's right on the
Right
cover.
on the- okay.
Just write commission exhibit number 1.
Okay.
And you're offering that in evidence?
That's correct.
Do you have any objection, Mr. Girardin? Okay, great. So we'll receive that in evidence. And that's it, it's admitted.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any questions from commission members?
No.
Terrific. So we'll proceed. Mr. Wayne, would you like to give us some background on the case?
Absolutely. And I'll count on being able to make a few comments at the end. Is
Of
that-
course.
Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. You'll have this, you can consider this kind of an opening statement.
Thank you. So Mr. Girardin is a candidate for the State House of Representatives in District 92, and he submitted his qualifying contributions and supporting documents to receive the public funding on April 22nd. Our commission staff reviewed the documents, and on May 1st, we made the decision that he was not eligible to receive the public funding because for 30 of his contributions, he did not submit proof that the contributors were registered to vote in his House district. And we believe that's required under our statute and our rules, and it's clear in our guidance. And for that reason, the staff turned him down on the funding, and he's appealing that decision.
Okay. Do commission members have any questions for Mr. Wayne? No. Okay, Mr. Girardin, you have a chance to make an opening statement. This isn't evidence. So after your opening statement, if you want to give testimony, I'll swear you in and then you can give testimony. So just kind of give us the background for your case in the opening statement.
First, I'd like to thank you guys for listening to me. So 2 parts. So on my side, I did get 64 registered voters that were registered voters signed. I do have for evidence. And what I think we lost it in translation as far as the process of doing it. I was told that I had to log these in, I put them in, and it stays in a position of pending. As I waited for that to come out of pending, which it never did until after the 22nd, I came in early on the 22nd to see if I could clarify some of this, and there was no clarification in it, so I thought it still stayed pending. It did, constantly kept checking it. I do know the process now. As I read through it, I did print out the paperwork, and I was able to follow through as I was reading the prints on how to get through this whole thing. It kind of felt more like a video game. I was trying to find a golden coin after going through it all. That's all I have for a statement.
Okay. Do you want to present testimony? Do you want, you should, as part of your appeal, you should present testimony that kind of tells us that in an official way after I've sworn you in, okay?
Yes,
So please state your name for the record.
Scott Girardin.
Please rise and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth at this public hearing today?
Yes, I do.
Please have a seat. So now you can give us testimony. This testimony is evidence and you're doing it under oath.
So on the 22nd, or I guess we could back it up to the 15th, I realized that people online could actually put donations in online, but I didn't have any way of seeing that or knowing that. So I sent in an email on, I believe, the 15th, asking where I could find that information. I was given that information, and I was able to find it. So the online donations were put out verified, unverified. And that's how I understood the process. I actually played with it and put my own name in there to see how it worked, and I put in verified. And that's where I thought we were. On the 17th or the morning of the 18th, I got a phone call stating that I had to log in all my Clean Elections donations. That's when I figured out that that's when I had to do that. So I logged them all in. When I logged them all in, I submit it, it goes into pending. So I'm assuming that in pending means that it's gonna get verified. So I keep checking it every couple hours so that I can go down and have these clarified by the clerk. And they never come up. They stay in pending. So on the morning of the 22nd, I come in early to try to clarify or see if I can get some, justification on why I'm pending or what do I have to do. At the
When you
same,
say come in, did you come into this?
I came in here to drop off my paperwork.
Okay,
I did ask the question, hey, everything's still in pending. I was told that it will come out of pending when we register your finances, which I had to ask for an extension on that because I got donations earlier that day or the day before for like $10, and I had to put those in my seed money. So I asked for an extension, then within 2 or 3 days, I had that in, and then it came out of pending. When it came out of pending, I seen that there was 30 unverified. So at that point, I still didn't know what to do. I printed it out unverified on that screen, but it didn't give me something like this. As we communicated, I did get the emails that explained the directions on how to do it. And there again, that's where I came in and had to print them out, hold it off to this side, go through the computer and all the steps, put in the dates where the dates had to be. It was a process. And then I did figure it out. So I did print it, brought it down to the clerk, had them verified. And they are, like I said, would like to represent the 64 registered voters that did donate, that they did take the time and work to get all these donations. And I'd like to honor them also. And that's one of the reasons I'm here. I felt like if I didn't come through with this, because there were 64 registered voters put in by the 22nd, because it was an instructional error on my side, I'm not gonna dispute that. But I just feel like it could have been an easier process. Like I said, I felt like I was playing a video game after the fact, and I was trying to find that golden coin to get to this. It being my first time, and yes, now I do understand it, but that's kind of what I got.
thank you very much. Mr. Wayne, do you have any questions for?
Well, it's kind of a question, kind of a suggestion, but Mr. Girardin has, I believe, brought in a document which is sort of an important step of the process that we believe should have happened before the deadline, but he's taking care of it after the deadline. And I just thought it might help the commissioner's understanding if we were to photocopy it and make it part of the record. I don't want to overstep.
Well, I think, why don't you offer it as an exhibit when you give testimony?
Great, thank you.
Do you
Other
have
than
any-
that, I don't have any other questions.
Mr. Bolton, do you have any questions for Mr. Chairman? Any commission members have questions? Yes.
Just an easy one. When you reference the clerk, you mean the town clerk?
Yes, to get these registered
Thank
from
you.
the town.
Any other questions from commission members?
I guess I'd ask you, Mr. Friend, did you have a copy of the candidate guide?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I did.
And did you review it? In hindsight, with the
Yes,
instructions in there?
there was a quick brief read through to get to it, but even after the fact, like I said, I did read it. I did have it. I'm not disputing that. But when I did understand that there's quite a few places in this that we did tag out, or that Jonathan tagged out, and as I read it, it doesn't it just tells me that I need to download it and that it'll be taken care of. And then only in a few spots, it tells me the whole process. And even reading through that, I turn and I try to get it. But then there, now I gotta hold it up here and I gotta go through it's a daunting, confusing aspect of it. And if anything comes out of it, I'd just like to see a neater, cleaner package for the next guy that tries to do it for the first time.
Commissioner Claire, do you have any questions?
No.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from commissioners? Okay, Mr. Wayne, would you like to present any testimony?
Yes, we wanted to invite Lori Brand, our candidate registrar, to testify.
Terrific. Ms. Brand, if you could come forward. Please remain standing, state your name for the record.
Lori Brand,
Please raise your right, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Lori Brand, candidate registrar.
Terrific. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth at this public hearing today?
I do.
Very good. Please have a seat. Mr. Wayne.
Ms. Brand, could you tell the commission, what does a candidate need to do to qualify for the Maine Clean Election Act funding if they're running for the House?
Candidates who register as Maine Clean Election candidates have to access two different websites. They register through Campaign Finance, and once they sign in and establish their permanent password, they are able to access the online qualifying contributions site. The online qualifying contributions site is where they receive both online contributions and where they enter any physical qualifying contributions they receive. As they enter those physical qualifying contributions into the site attempts to verify the voter's registration status through an interface with the Secretary of State's Certified Voter Registry. The site does this for both physical and for online entries. So all qualifying contributions in the initial phase, which is pre-certification, regardless of whether they are entered by the candidate or they are made online, end up in a pending status. And they remain in a pending status until the candidate actually requests certification from us. We, as candidate registrars, are able to view their lists, but we do not touch any of their QCs until they actually request certification.
And whose responsibility is it to verify that the contributors are registered to vote in the legislative district?
It is the candidate's responsibility.
Is this process described in the guidance that the commission provides to the candidates?
The process is described on one of the purple pages, which is why we decided to give you hard copies. So the purple pages of the guidebook are what we call the staff tips. So it is there, it is a step-by-step process. When we designed the guidebook this time, we decided to try to move into a more user-friendly type of manual type thing. So not only is it laid out how to enter the qualifying contributions, it's laid out how to do the clerk verification. Later in the book, there are actually step-by-steps for entering contributions into campaign finance and expenditures into campaign finance. We tried to make this as simple or as user-friendly to candidates as possible.
And as we prepared the record for this hearing, did you note in these guidance materials the places where there's advice to the candidates on this particular topic?
Yes, there's multiple locations. It is on this staff tips page. If you look at page 11, there's a whole section on voter registration verification. When you go forward and you look at page 13, again, this is the requesting certification page. Again, it talks about having clerk verification forms. And we also included the other purple page is the actual checklist. So this checklist was attached to the request for certification form that all MCEA candidates must submit in order to request certification. And this is just a checklist for them to be saying, okay, and there, as you can see, there are little boxes for them to check off to say, yes, I have this, I have this, I have this. It would be, I'm gonna say this, it would be disingenuous for me to say that all candidates check the boxes because they don't. Very often, they don't look at this. But this same information is actually on the request for certification form. There are various pieces there that when they sign off on that form, they're saying that they have submitted these things as part of their request for certification.
And was the checklist distributed to the candidates close to the April 22nd deadline?
At the beginning of March, I asked Julie to start including the request for certification and the checklist in every single packet that went out to newly registered MCEA candidates. Because we made a point of mailing the guidebook, and for MCEA candidates, we had a little blue folder which contained their registration form, their vendor form, their EFT form, and a receipt and acknowledgement form, as well as a cash slip form. And then we added the request for certification and checklist into that folder. So when that went out, they had a complete packet of everything they would need.
At this point, well, actually, let me refer to one more thing in the record, in the proposed record that was distributed earlier. If I can draw your attention to page that's marked Girard Record 21. Could you describe what that page is and how it helps the candidate?
So this page is what the candidates see when, I'm gonna step you back to 20. So this is the landing page when a candidate signs into the online qualifying contribution site. It, as you can see, by the bold, it lands on contribution search, and that is what that little block down below where you can fill in the information. So the next hyperlink is how they enter their physical qualifying contributions. Then the next one is action required. Action required is generally empty until we process their qualifying contributions. And then the last link is the contribution receipt and acknowledgement download. So for Mr. Girardin, what he would have seen when he signed in is he would have seen 68 pending. Nothing else, none of the other fields would have all been zeros. So then if you go down to the block where it says search by, the only thing any candidate has to do is click search. And when they click search, that's when you get page 21. So page 21 is for the candidates, as you can see, it defaults to 50. So he had 68, he would have had to enlarge it out in order to see all 68. But all of those columns are sortable. So when I am talking with a candidate who's called in about their qualifying contribution status, the first thing I tell them is click that verified online column, because no N is before Y. So that would have put all of the no's right there on top, and he could have seen very easily that he was at 30 no's. So, and this same list can be downloaded into Excel. And then of course, if you're okay with Excel, you can sort it and do whatever you need to with it. The list does not identify whether this is an online contribution or a physical contribution. It just is a complete list of contributors.
I think the only other material I wanted to cover was to go over with Ms. Brand that form that Mr. Girardin brought with him. So if commission would permit, I might just run to the next room, make some photocopies.
I think that'd be great.
I think maybe 12 or 15 copies. Sorry for the delay.
No problem. I moderate my town meeting, and usually if there's a delay like this, I'll tell a couple of corny jokes. But I have to be very careful because they have to be acceptable to a wide audience.
Yeah, maybe we should go off the record before you start.
They're totally dad jokes.
We have stock of them.
I do. Like, elephant jokes are my go-to. Like, why do ducks have flat feet? For stamping on forest fires. Why do elephants have flat feet? For stamping on burning ducks. Martha's rolling her eyes.
Poor people.
Are you gonna offer this in evidence, Mr. White?
I am, Sir Shall I Market Commission.
Commission exhibit number 2. Mr. Girardin, do you have any objection to this being admitted?
No, not at all.
Okay, commission exhibit number 2 is admitted in evidence.
So, Ms. Brand, just to complete the picture for the commission, if a candidate is using the online system and they see the contribution search results that are shown on page 21 and they see a no in the verify column, what's the next step that they should take under our procedures to verify that the contributors are registered to vote in the district?
So again, I'm going to flip between 20 and 21. So on page 20, of course, this is the landing page. And once again, the fourth link is the contribution receipt acknowledgement download. So this particular form is accessed either from the home page or when you're actually looking at the list. So on page 21, you can see that contribution search is bold. But right next to that is the contribution receipt and acknowledgement download. So they can, when they're staring at their list, they can literally toggle this process to create these forms. The trick, it can be a little tricky to do this, because when you open this up, it turns into a series of steps. So the first one is city, town. We always tell candidates to leave that to all. It doesn't matter. With the next box is verification. We usually tell them to set it to no, but if they don't, that's fine as well. And then the final step is setting in a date range. So basically, usually we tell them, set in January 1, 2024 through the day that you're actually triggering this. If you don't set the verification status to no, what happens is it prints every single one of your QCs. And for the ones that are verified, you get a neat little verified online in parentheses after the name. All of them print with the clerk signature block on them. So one way or another, you get the clerk forms. You just end up giving the clerk a few too many pages.
Can I offer a summary and make sure I have it straight? So if the candidate sees certain contributors have a no, not verified status, they click on the button, the link for contribution receipt and acknowledgement download, and that would print out a form like Commission Exhibit 2, is that correct?
Correct. It pops it into a PDF, which they can then print.
So, you know, if I can just draw your attention to Exhibit 2 and the names and different parts of the form, what do they do with this form at that point?
So this form goes to, these are obviously processed forms. These go to, they take this to the relevant town clerk. And I say relevant because obviously some districts have multiple towns, which is why you leave it set to all. So this prints out a list by town. It breaks out the no's by town, and you take this to the town clerk, and the town clerk then compares these to their voter rolls. And as you can see on the form, the town clerk actually made some corrections to some of these. They tend to circle the ones that are good. They mark out the ones that are not good. We love it when they actually give us corrections on these because it's very helpful when we're doing this, especially if a candidate is certified. Helps us be able to see if perhaps the same contributor contributes again for duplicate status. And ultimately, the town clerk signs off in the little block stating how many they have verified, dating and signing. And this is something that is included with the other physical forms that a candidate submits as part of their certification request.
By the deadline, correct?
By the deadline, or before.
And will the commission accept these forms after the deadline?
No.
I don't have any other questions.
Okay, Mr. Girardin, do you have any questions for Ms. Brandt?
No, yeah, I do, but, to back it up to get to this stage, after you type them all in, and it stays pending, that's where I got stuck, because I kept waiting for it to generate the verified, not verified list. It's that process is where I got, so what was the process? I understand it now, but I'm just trying to explain where I got stuck.
Right.
The process in getting it out of that pending.
The only way to get it out of pending was to request certification.
And it does not certify it automatically.
No.
That's where I got stuck.
Do you have any other questions? Okay. Mr. Bolton, any questions?
Yeah, just to make sure I understand, so the candidate can't see whether the voter, the CVR system is confirmed, whether the person is registered until the request is made for certification?
No.
Okay.
That's not true.
Oh, okay, all right, so I'm misunderstanding. So can you explain that?
So 21 is Mr. Girardin's list of QCs. These were all what he saw, what he could see. And basically, it's the verified online column that he had to pay attention to.
Yeah.
So, there are two different views. For a candidate, this is what they see. For a staff person, we actually can see whether that contributor, that's their status, were they a manual or were they an online? So we see that extra step, but that's not a step they see at all. They just see the verified online. And ironically, it's one of these things that had he called me, I would have said, oh yeah, I see you have 68. And I would have started sorting through and saying, oh, there's ours defaults to 10. So I'd have been paging and saying, okay, whoops, there's 10, 20. Oh, that's 30. That's not good. You need clerk forms. I don't want to see your packet until you get your clerk forms. So then when he turned in, if he didn't actually, there's another step for the candidates. So anything he enters, the candidate enters, goes into a list on their entry page. And at the bottom of their list is a orange, because they like orange, I don't understand. But there's an orange submit list to commission button. So that's part of their process as well, is when they're ready for certification, they have to press that list. And then all of those manually entered QCs that I can see, but I could never process them until he clicks that. And by clicking that, he actually locks his manually entered QCs. Up until that point, those QCs are all in a pending status. He has the ability to edit them. He has the ability to remove and re-enter them. And that remove button is right in his list of manually entered.
When you say
QCs.
manually entered, you mean somebody who wrote a check and handed it to Mr. Girard, and then he had to type in the name in.
Correct. And the thing of it is that generally speaking, we tell candidates, especially as we're getting closer to the deadline, do not waste your time trying to fix your entries. Do the download, take it to the clerk, let the clerk verify these for you. You do not have the time to sit there and remove and re-enter these QCs, because all of this process takes time. So it's just one of those things that, unfortunately, had we had more conversations, I would have been beating you up and saying, this is what I need you to do.
Mr. Bolton?
I think I understand. So the place where you see pending when you're in the system is in Girardin record 20
Correct,
under contribution totals.
yes,
And that when those contributions are locked in, the numbers will switch from pending to action required.
when I process.
When you process, okay, all right. But even when the entries are totaled in the pending column on 20, the candidate can still get to the table on 21 that shows verified online, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Any questions from commission members?
No.
Commissioner Leclerc?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
I think Ms. Bolton asked my question, but a candidate at any time in the process can access this pending, verified, non-verified.
Correct.
Anytime. It's not, you don't have to wait till they do something like this application certification.
No.
So,
The act of actually submitting the QCs does not do anything to move them from a pending status.
the bottom line is they can access this anytime in the process.
Correct.
And then follow up with the
Correct.
verification.
Yes.
Any other questions from commissioners?
From Mr. Girardin or,
No, from Ms. Brand.
no, thank you.
Mr. Wayne, anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for your testimony. Anything else from the commission, Mr. Wayne?
No more evidence.
Okay. Mr. Girardin, would you like to make a brief closing statement?
Yeah, the only thing I'd like to see is that maybe with verifying all the signatures and all the donations, wouldn't it be easier for me to just take my whole list by myself and take it to the clerk versus having this whole process and then taking it to the clerk anyways? Just to simplify. I'm just trying to, I'd like to make it easier for somebody else that's trying to do this next year or the year after.
I appreciate that.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Wayne, anything to say in closing?
Just that the staff's determination is based on statute and rule. It says in the statute, 21A, section 1125, subsection 5, I'm sorry, 1125, subsection 4, that a participating candidate must submit the qualifying contributions and the proof of the voter registry, verification of the voter registration during the qualifying period. And that requirement is also reflected in the rules. We think I understand what Mr. Girardin is saying regarding the pending notation, and after this process is over, I will be talking with my colleagues about whether there's any clarification we can add without creating a lot more language that shows people what does pending mean versus valid and invalid. So there was always a review process and to see if we can improve the system, and we'll go with that. But we think the statute and rule are clear. We think the guidance and the checklist are clear. And we don't think that we've made any legal or factual error in the staff determination. And so we think it ought to be affirmed.
Mr. Girardin, any final thoughts? Okay, great. Mr. Bolton? Anything?
Nothing for me. Thank you.
Commissioner members? Yes, please.
Mr. Wayne, is it been the commission's practice to treat this as a firm deadline and not to allow exceptions?
It absolutely is. If you look through the guidance materials, they're very clear that this has to happen in the qualifying period, and this is actually required by rule. We saw the need to make it as specific as possible in rule. So under Chapter 3, Section 3.1 of the rules, there's a list of what they have to include in the request for certification. And the rules even go so far as to say the commission and the commission staff may not grant an extension of time to submit the qualifying contributions and the confirmation of the voter registration. So we regard it as legally binding on us, and we've always been very strict. We've learned the hard way that we can come across as strict, but that's really the key to consistency. So that guides everything we do.
Any questions from them, please?
Just, if I could, any sense of frequency of this kind of occurrence happening over the last 5 years or so?
I don't mean to pile on with Mr. Girardin.
That was hesitant in asking the question for the same reason.
We have we have about roughly 200 candidates participating. We have turned down a few people who have not appealed, but I believe he may be the only one, maybe one or two out of the 200, including Mr. Girardin, are in the position of not understanding they had to submit proof for the deadline. So the vast majority understand it. We did have a few in 2022 that didn't follow this. We turned them down, and this commission affirmed the staff's denial in those cases in 2022. Some of you may remember that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always, we always want to make it as clear as we can. We think the guidance materials and the checklist are pretty clear. If you get a checklist that says, here's what you must do, we think it's incumbent on the candidate to run through that checklist and figure out what they have to do before the deadline.
Thank you. Any other questions from Commissioner? Commissioner Leclerc?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Just because there's been more kind of information come out, I'd like to give you a chance to,
One more to go on to that question of how many people were denied. How many people were denied that were new at the process versus how many were running again?
I mean,
You said out of 200, there was only 2 or 3 that didn't. Was there only 2 or 3 new people running? Or were there, 190 return?
the answer is I don't know. The best of my recollection, we've denied 4 candidates this year. One was for an issue totally unrelated to this. There were 3 other denials. Possibly one of them had some overlap with the issues here. I'm not really sure. And I'm afraid I just don't know if they're experienced or they're new. But we appreciate the point that when you're new, there's a learning curve, absolutely.
And part of this question, I think, was, what proportion of the total number of candidates is running for the first time and what proportion is running for election? Do you have any idea?
I don't, possibly our witness has more information.
Ms. Brand, do you have any idea? You're still under oath, so.
Basically, out of my half of the state, and I have the southern half. So, I started out with just over 100 candidates running MCEA. Out of that 100, Mr. Girardin is the only one that I denied. I'm down, so 6 or 8 all just didn't request certification because they were either below or they were, there's an incumbent rep that didn't get clerk forms and ultimately did not request certification. So there was no denial there, but he was in the same situation. He thought he had enough QCs to be certified, but he also had just enough no's. He should have, obviously as an incumbent, should have known about doing the clerk verification, but he called on the day of certification. We encouraged candidates strongly to come in prior to the deadline and submit their packets. All candidates that came in the week before, because certification was on a Monday. All candidates that dropped off early, their QCs were reviewed. Regardless of whether or not their seed money report was in. I personally told 3 of my candidates that they would not be certified if they did not fix these things. And 2 of them, it was clerk forms. One was an experienced candidate, he hasn't run in a couple of years. The other one was a brand new candidate. So I sent them off and said, you will get these or you will not be certified.
So Mr. Jordan's question, part of it was, out of your 100 candidates, how many would you say had run before and how many were first time?
I would say that probably it's a 50-50 split between, candidates who've run before and candidates that are brand new to the process. Candidates that are brand new to the process tend to need, I don't mean this insultingly, but more hand-holding. So they're a little more time intensive. They tend to contact us more. If they don't contact us, then honestly, I'm that person that is saying, why didn't you call me? I tell all of my candidates, I would rather talk to you 15 times a day and answer the same question 15 times over, rather than you go out and you assume you know and make a mistake that's going to cost you. We are readily available to people. I sent emails on the weekend leading up to certification to all candidates that requested early, or submitted early, and let them know of their status so that they would have Monday to repair whatever they needed to, if they had to.
Sure. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yeah.
Great. Do you have anything else to And
No, I would just like to see, and even just listening, it just sounds like it is convoluted, not just for me. So it kind of reaffirms me, and makes me feel a little better. I would just like to see some rule change. Like an easy step would say, hey, get your signatures, take them to the clerk, get them signed, get them certified, done. I'm not playing a computer game. I'm not looking for that golden coin. That's all I have for a comment.
great, thank you. Mr. Wayne, anything final?
Uh, No, the current setup is designed, well, I mean, one more point. The current is, the system has been redesigned to save candidates time by, for most of them, not having to even bother their clerks. And that's the design of the system. But we realize by making them figure out which have been verified online or not, it's an extra step for the candidates. But a lot of the candidates, it's hard to know what will work out best for every situation, but a lot of the candidates do appreciate that if they enter the names and addresses and right for 90% of their qualifying offers, they don't even have to bother their town clerk. But it does require the candidate to do a layer of research to figure out where they stand. So I appreciate Mr. Girardin's point.
If I could make a point,
If you have to.
I do. The clerks have 10 days. 10 days to process these forms. So Mr. Girardin, I'm very sorry to say, entered all of his on the 18th of April. If the clerk, if he had brought every single one of them to the clerk, there is no guarantee that the clerk would have processed them in time for him to have even submitted what he did. If we went back to the old, because we used to do that method. If we went back to that, that's the risk.
Okay, so I want to give everybody a chance again. Mr. Girardin, anything else?
No, thank you.
Mr. Wayne?
No, thank
Mr. Bolt? Commission members?
No.
Okay, so I'll call the evidentiary portion of this hearing to an end. We have received testimony from Mr. Girardin. We've received testimony from Ms. Brand. We have 2 commission exhibits from Mr. Wayne. And now it comes to the deliberation portion. I've listened carefully to all the testimony from both sides. And I would make a motion that we rule that Mr. Girardin did not fulfill the requirements to become a clean election candidate. Is there a second for that motion? Second. And so now we have discussion and deliberation. Commission members, anybody? Yes. Commissioner.
I will, support of the motion. I guess it's just a warning to candidates that you can't, waiting to the last minute has pitfalls. And we've seen this in any number of cases, and it's often because the issue didn't arise until the day of or the day before. So I suspect these issues are raised by other candidates weeks in advance and get resolved. So I guess that's the warning.
Yeah. That's
That
excellent.
probably ought to be something on the front of the book that says, don't wait till the last minute.
Right. That's an excellent point. I think out of all the hearings and adjudicatory matters that we've handled, almost all of them were last minute kind of things that probably could have been fixed if they'd been tackled a little bit ahead of time. And I've been a candidate myself. I know it's just really hard to get stuff done before the last minute until you have that pressure, but it's very helpful to do. Ms. Leclerc?
I would adopt what Commissioner Hastings has just said, and that's about it. Thank you.
Terrific. Okay, so it's time for a vote, and we should do this vote by a roll call because someone is remote. Commissioner Leclerc. It's been moved and seconded that we rule that Mr. Girardin did not fulfill the requirements to become a clean election candidate.
My vote is yes.
Commissioner Martin? Yes. Commissioner Hastings?
Yes.
And I'll also vote yes. So that concludes the hearing. Yes, Mr.
Yeah.
Bolton?
One more issue, which is, I would strongly recommend that the commission issue a written decision on this.
Yes.
And the way the commission has done this in the past is that they have voted to delegate to the chair the authority to sign the written decision. And I could certainly work with the chair on drafting a decision that reflects the deliberation and conclusion each year. There's other ways you could go about doing it if you didn't want to take that approach, but that would be my recommendation.
No, I think that's a terrific approach.
Would that require a motion?
Yes.
I move that we authorize, the commission authorize our chair to issue a written decision consistent with our vote.
Second.
Is there discussion? Okay, we'll take a vote. Commissioner Leclerc?
Yes.
Commissioner Marvel? Yes. Commissioner Hastings?
Yes.
I'll also vote yes. Terrific. Thank you, Mr. Bolton, for tying that up for us. Okay, now this hearing is at a close. We'll issue a written decision that you'll get a copy of and see. And I'm sorry it worked out this way. This doesn't mean you can't be a candidate. This just means that you don't get the clean election money to do it.
I just hope I make it easier for somebody else.
I think the whole process, every time we go through this, probably helps somebody out.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Now, we have some additional business.
That's right. Thank you. I wonder if you might pause. We've been assisted by one of the assistant AGs.
Yes, and she's worked so hard.
But she's not necessary for this next item, so I wonder. Is that okay, Nancy?
Sure.
Okay.
Well, I think she's necessary all the time.
Yeah.
So don't be offended by me.
No, it's been great to be graced by your presence.
Not a bit.
And thank you very much, Nancy.
Yeah,
Sure.
we really appreciate it. And I think Jonathan particularly appreciates having
Yes,
a little backup at his elbow.
yes, exactly. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Good to see you.
Great to see you too.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
All right.
The item for other business, we wanted to take advantage of the fact that you were meeting today, so we could keep progress on a project that's been assigned to the commission. And this relates to question 2 that Maine voters approved last November. And part of question 2, which is well known, is that Maine voters adopted a new law that forbids foreign governments from making expenditures and contributions to influence candidate elections. But there was a second part of the question, which directed the commission to issue an annual report on proposals in the U.S. in the Congress to amend the federal constitution to allow for greater regulation of how money is raised and spent. So this is something that we'll be doing for the next several years. The deadline to publish these reports is July 31st. And we've already gotten started on it, and we have identified in the last year and a half, there have been 6 congressional resolutions in Congress that propose these types of constitutional amendments. And if you go onto the website of the U.S. Congress, there's detailed information about each one, including the language and the co-sponsors and so forth. So we've done some research, but we wanted to get your feedback on the report that needs to be issued. And we just, as staff, we just have 2 or 3 questions because you are the commission and we want to make sure we're, as staff, this is going to be your report and we want to make sure we're acting in accordance with what your preferences are. So one of the practical questions is that the statute or the law says the Commission on Governmental Ethics and Election Practices shall issue a report following public comment identifying anti-corruption amendment proposals introduced in Congress and the members of Maine's congressional delegation sponsoring such proposals. So I reached out to one of the advocacy organizations whose main project is to generate support for these types of congressional amendments. And they were actually a financial supporter of question 2, and I was interested in their feedback about different aspects of this report. And the advocacy organization is recommending that we actually hold a public hearing about these anti-corruption amendments. And I think you know, from an outsider's perspective, I imagine they're trying to generate support, generate discussion of this, and draw attention to these proposals to amend the US Constitution. And I understand that suggestion. At the same time, you know, our commission has always had sort of a circumscribed role in terms of making proposals on policy, especially federal law. We don't normally do that. So I just wasn't sure how much you wanted to get involved in the process of receiving comments from the public and whether you wanted to have it live or in writing. It's just sort of an open-ended question to see how you feel about that.
Sure. My feeling is that I think that the most useful comments we could give would be written comments. And, you know, I think as a framework, I would think about establishing a 30-day period for written comments that would allow plenty of time for the commission to incorporate those into the report if necessary. Any other commissioners have thoughts? Yeah, please.
Question. Could you describe for us the process you and staff would follow for solicitation of written feedback or the conducting of a public hearing? In other words, I might sit here and I am leaning more about a public hearing, let's just put that out there. But I have no interest in setting aside that time and everything if the process, and not the senders, but if the process predictably is going to result in a minor turnout that doesn't reflect the goal. In other words, if we're targeting opportunities for people to offer written feedback that gets to people, that gets to the parties that should know, great. But I'm just curious, what are those procedures? Do you have an opinion on that?
Well, I can think of two things we do, whether we're inviting people to come participate in a public hearing or to submit written comments. The two things we would do are, first, we would send out the normal email notices that we send. So people can sign up on our homepage to receive anything of interest relating to the commission. And we send out when we're doing a rulemaking, we invite comment that way. We also send out the agendas for the meetings or any kind of special notice that we want.
Any idea how many recipients?
I don't myself have that knowledge.
There are 83.
83.
Wow, outstanding.
The other thing we would do, I would be inclined to do is, there are a number of national reform organizations and local reform organizations who are interested in this kind of constitutional amendment. And I've already been able to identify some of them. So I would probably be identifying the right personnel at 6 to 8 of these organizations who have demonstrated an interest in this general topic, and personally contacting them and letting them know that we're inviting written comment or participation in a public hearing. Those are the two things I would do.
And you'd identify opponents as well, right?
Yeah, yes, it may be harder to identify them, but generally there are groups that are not in favor of greater regulation of campaign speech, and it's not hard to figure out who those are.
Commissioner Hayes?
Thank you. My concern about this is I understand we have an obligation under this referendum and statute. And I assume, Mr. Bolton, that the temporary restraining order does not
No, it has nothing to
interfere
do
with
with this.
our obligation to continue
It
to.
has nothing to do with this aspect of the law.
My concern is that this commission this is inserting us into partisan politics. Seems to me. It's a political issue. And we are ordered to do something here, but I hate to see this commission become a forum for partisan issues. That's not our role. And personally, I think seeking public written comment is sufficient, but that's my concern with this. I don't mind gathering the information, that's what they're looking for. But then to use this as this commission as a forum then to make political statements about the conduct of our congressional delegation, perhaps, I think that's the wrong, that's not what we should be using this commission for, and I'd rather minimize that rather than to maximize that.
I couldn't agree more. Commissioner Leclerc, do you have anything to add or?
Well, I'm gonna try to make it through without coughing. But this is the first time we're doing something like this, correct? With this issue, and it was an issue that was raised through the referendum process, and so it occurs to me that holding a public hearing where people can speak would be a good way to test this process. It's new, and we might decide something differently next year. But given the nature of the issue, the fact that we haven't done this before, I guess I would suggest that we do hold some sort of a opportunity for people to come in and express their views. Thank you. I mean, I understand that we don't want to have, it'd be uncomfortable to some extent if it's used to just attack members of the delegation. But we don't know that is what would happen. And so I'm inclined to say have a public hearing and see how it goes and use that information going forward.
Anything else?
That is all. Thank you.
I wonder what I'm gonna think of what I'm about to say 2 weeks from now, when I've really had time to think about it. For whatever reason, right or wrong, I'm reminded of when I was running a nonprofit and needed various things, including public policy discussions that would lead to adequate financial support for what I was trying to do. And I was trying to identify a way to stimulate that discussion across boundaries and across quadrants. And I looked to the United Way at the time, and their response was, we don't want to appear like an advocate for. And my pushback was, I am not asking you to do that. I am asking you to facilitate a conversation. And I think it may be naive of me, but when I look at the title of what we are, which is governmental ethics, I just think, why can't we convene a dialogue? And even if it leaned ultimately partisan, I don't see how that would be on us. And again, that may be the naive part, because people see what they're gonna see and they believe what they're gonna believe after they see it. But I guess I don't necessarily see the concern you raise, which I respect as a concern, happening.
Well, with all due respect, I disagree strongly with that. I think it's not our job to be facilitating that kind of discussion. We're not serving the purposes of some nonprofit or some advocate. Our responsibility is, for 7 consecutive years, beginning July 31st, 2023, the Commission on Governmental Ethics and Election Practices shall issue a report following public comment, identifying anti-corruption amendment proposals introduced in Congress and the members of Maine's congressional delegation sponsoring such proposals. I just don't think we need extensive hearings to do that. I think if we ask for written comments from people who might be interested, I think that will assist us in doing that report. But it's not our job to be providing a forum for all kinds of organizations. I think our job is to do this report that's very black and white.
I don't disagree with that. My concern really rests with, and this is not a negative comment on you, Jonathan, or staff, but just would the determination of staff on who to contact be sufficient? I don't know how to judge what 83 names on that list means. I mean, I'm glad they're there. It doesn't seem like a lot to me. Neither do I want to unintentionally give partisan voices too big a role. And I don't want to overstep our responsibility either. I agree with that. My concern remains that this is new, that it matters, and that we maximize valid information going where it should go. If it's the wish by vote of the commission that this is done by soliciting those comments, I'll support that.
Any other comments or questions from commission members?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So perhaps somebody can enlighten me. The requirement is that the commission issue a report detailing congressional efforts from our delegation or otherwise on this issue. And then there's the part about the public comment. What do you see as the function of the requirement for public comment in this particular?
Whom are you asking?
I'll ask you.
Okay. I think the statute says, our report should identify anti-corruption amendment proposals introduced in Congress, which in my mind is a list.
Mhm.
And the members of Maine's congressional delegation sponsoring such proposals, which in my mind is a list. And I don't know that an extensive hearing allowing testimony from various groups for and against is going to help us at all. I think written comments from whoever is tracking this issue is going to be more than sufficient. Yes, Commissioner.
And one of Jonathan's questions, I think, was, should we go beyond creating that list of who were, quote, sponsors? And then start inquiring to congressional delegation, if, even though they're not a sponsor, maybe they're advocating something, or they're, that's going beyond, to me, what our role is here. I don't think we should be holding hearings to see if Representative Golden is in favor, or if he hasn't sponsored it, he hasn't sponsored it. If he has, he has. And that's what we were asked to do. But I just don't think we should be. Then, once we start going to our delegation and asking them, in spite of the fact that you weren't a sponsor, what are you doing on this? Now we're starting to we're getting into advocacy and partisan politics.
Even asking the question is in a way advocacy.
Goes beyond what we were asked to do, we're told to do here.
Right. To me, the requirement seems very black and white. Are there other questions, comments from?
I'm just confused about what the function, why that phrase following public comment is there. If we're just supposed to produce a black and white list, if our role is strictly ministerial, why is that in there? That's my question.
Yep, fair. And I think that's we have what we have from the legislature. I think it's up to anybody to come up with what the legislature meant. I think.
Actually, the legislature didn't write this.
Oh, is this?
This is a referendum.
Oh, okay, right. Okay,
So again, that phrase is in there, and I think it requires something of us more than just the ministerial indexing of, bills in Congress. And
yeah,
I just want to ask these questions. Was it the referendum's intent? I don't know, to keep the issue alive, as to not have it be more abundant in only organizations, but to keep the voice of people, small people, available. So I would just hope that when we're requesting, I can say I'm in the minority on this, I would just say when we're requesting written comments, that we do what we can to assure that the average voter or citizen of the state of Maine knows that they have a chance to voice their opinion or whatever comment they wish to make. I mean, I get what people are saying. We don't want to run a hearing just to have people taking partisan pot shots at people, but I just don't think it's okay to just kind of push that requirement into the background and reduce this to simply a ministerial categorization or a listing of congressional bills.
But I think a reasonable middle ground then is written comments. I think that allows people, and perhaps Jonathan could put a notice on our website inviting, that might be part of your normal process, but you could put a notice on the website inviting written comments from the public.
We will do that. I should have mentioned that. That's actually the third thing. We do have a notices section.
Okay.
So is there at first I thought I heard a different, like 2 people on one side, 2 people on the other side. Is there now a consensus?
Let me help.
Yeah.
May I just can we post this somewhat more broadly than just on our website? Would the commission consider issuing a press release at some point, just citing the statute and asking for comment? I'm not sure anybody would respond, but I just don't like, I would like some focus on the right of people to comment on this and
Sure. As am I.
I understand that you would have concerns knowing that there's only 83 people that are signed up for our distribution list that we send out the meeting notices to. So we have a broad number of people who that are reporting entities to this office, political parties, lobbyists, political action committees of all different stripes. We can certainly send an email out, email notification to all of those groups that report to us, because many of whom may know people who are interested in this, individual citizens, small groups who maybe don't get as involved in politics that rise to the level of registration and reporting with this office. So I'd suggest an email of that sort to all of our folks, and that covers Republicans, Democrats, Independents, all sorts of people as an alternative.
I think that would be helpful. That's
Can I
fine.
ask just a brief question? Does either list that you're just mentioning include at least a couple of reporters, press?
Yes, we have a number of reporters who are signed up for our, we call it, the service we use is called MailChimp, that gets out the notices of these meetings. So we have a number of reporters who are on that list.
Okay, thank you very much. That's helpful.
Commissioner Hastings.
Maybe, I know you might want some direction about your question as to whether you should delve into the other efforts of our delegation other than sponsoring, and I would move that we not do that as a part of the report, that we should do what the statute requires and identify the bills in front of Congress and the extent of our Maine's delegation being sponsors of the same. And that's what we were asked to do. Told to do, that's all. But I don't think we should be holding hearings to decide if non-sponsors have opinions.
I second that motion.
If we said that, would that help you if we?
Yes, that's exactly the kind of guidance I would, if that's the majority view, that's exactly what I would.
I'll make
I'll
that.
support that.
Yeah.
Okay,
I was gonna just say earlier.
Yeah,
just to help.
please.
I will support where I think we've landed on this, without a public hearing this year. And I'll be interested in just hopefully seeing, a more than typical response in this day and age to an opportunity to say something.
We often get good written responses to things. I think we'll get something useful. Is there discussion of the motion that's on the table to give Jonathan some guidance to stay strictly to the requirements of the referendum? Okay, hearing none, we should have a vote. It's been moved and seconded that we give Jonathan guidance to stay close to the language of the referendum in his response. Commissioner Claire,
Yes,
Commissioner Marble,
Yes.
Commissioner Hastings,
Yes.
and I'll also vote yes. And I'd like to make a motion that we solicit written remarks in the kind of widely distributed manner that we discussed, emails and our email, our contact list and on the website only, and that we do not hold a hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there discussion, further discussion? Okay, we'll hold a roll call vote. Commissioner Leclerc,
yes.
Commissioner Marble,
Yes.
Commissioner Hastings?
Yes.
And I'll also vote yes. Tremendous. Any other business we gotta,
That's it?
son of a gun?
No last minute memo, no.
No.
thing.
Mr. Bolton, anything else? Ms. Courier?
No, I'm good.
All right. Is,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, is there a motion to,
I move to adjourn.
is there a second?
Oh, second.
There being no discussion possible, Commissioner Claire?
Yes.
Boy, I was worried for a second. Commissioner Marble? Commissioner Hastings?
Yes.
And I'll also vote yes. Thank you very much, guys.
Commissioner Leclerc, feel better soon.
Yes, please,
Yes.
please get better.
Yeah, I haven't had anything related to sickness since before COVID, so I guess my